Welcome back. Now, yesterday, the Pietermaritzburg High Court reserved judgment on the application brought by former President Jacob Zuma for a stay of execution. Now, the much-anticipated ruling will further pave the way for the South African Police Service to institute the warrant of arrest order as instructed by the Constitutional Court and may see former President Jacob Zuma serving a possible 15 months in prison for contempt of court, pending, of course, his Constitutional Court application hearing on the 12th of July. So to talk to us more about the political implications and also the many developments surrounding former President Jacob Zuma, including, of course, the ANC's National Executive Committee decisions, we're joined by Professor Mcebisi Ndletyana, Professor of Politics at the University of Johannesburg. Professor Ndletyana, thanks for being with us. Welcome to Morning Live once more.
Good morning, Sakina.
So it's been such an interesting time, so many developments. But let me just gauge from you your sense of what's going on. You look at the legal matters and so many questions hanging in the balance to which even the legal minds are grappling with. So what do you make of what's happening at the moment?
I think the law is pretty clear and has been clear for a while. However, there has been an attempt from the side of Mr. Zuma and his lawyers to confuse us. For instance, in relation to the warrant of arrest that has been issued, Mr. Mugaitobi, or Advocate Mugaitobi, was very clear yesterday to say, in the absence of anything happening, the warrant of arrest stays, right? It is operational. And so my expectation is that if Jacob Zuma doesn't hand himself in by 12 o'clock tonight, then tomorrow he should be arrested, because nothing has interfered to freeze that warrant of arrest issued by the Constitutional Court. So that's the one thing. But most importantly, though, overall, is that what is happening is essentially testing the depth of our democracy. In that here we are faced with a very important person who has played a significant part in our history, very popular in KZN, so who wants to use his popularity, who wants a special dispensation, even though he has broken the law, but he doesn't want to face the law. And on the other hand, we are a democratic state meant to uphold our laws, so we are meant to do that. However, there's this menace of violence. So the question really is, can the state be deterred from its duty by a mere threat of violence? Are we really secured in our democratic nature that we can simply be, scared away from doing what we ought to do? So that is the test, because if we don't do what the law requires of us to do, then it means that we are not really a strong democratic society, that going forward, anybody can just threaten violence, carry around guns and spears, and the police will be scared away and not do anything. It would then mean that the law doesn't apply.
So do you not believe that the threat that we've been told about is real, is imminent, and could give rise again, as many have pointed out, to another Marikana-type disaster in this country?
It may well be, Sakina, it may well be that you have, in instances where people break the law, in instances where people, once they've made up their mind that they will break the law and they will use guns to do that, then obviously it means that there will be violence. But then the question comes back to say, is the state going to be scared away, frightened from implementing its own laws simply because other people are using violence against it? It would mean that the state is non-existent. So the mere threat of violence, that alone is not surprising, because you always have people who want to use violence against the state for whatever reason. The key thing for any law and order society, at least a society that claims to be based on law and order, is that it must assert its own laws by any means necessary. That is why the police and the soldiers have guns, because they are the only legitimate force in a democratic state that is recognized to use violence. So if violence breaks out, it would be because the disorderly, the rogues, have elected to use violence against the state, and therefore the state, on behalf of everybody else, on behalf of the Constitution, must act. It is mandated to act, and it will be doing so legitimately. And those, from the moment they fire the guns at police people, those people would be in violation of the law, regardless of other consequences. That whatever happens then becomes an aggravating factor. But the very fact that they would raise guns against the state is itself a crime.
And there have, of course, been further developments following this weekend activity at Nkandla. So we saw yesterday, at least we got sight of it yesterday morning, the application that was sent by the Minister of Police and the Commissioner through the State Attorney's Office, in which they actually state that they will not be following through with the Constitutional Court order to arrest the former president until they say the matter is concluded in the court. So looking at that application in the Constitutional Court, which will only be heard on Monday, the Police Minister Bheki Cele and the National Police Commissioner General Ketla Sithole basically saying that they will not be instituting that arrest warrant. So where does this take us? Because again, it would seem as though there is clarity that the order stands, given that it has not been set aside. But then you have all of these other arguments and noise around this particular matter, compounded, of course, by this application and what is stated in it by the Police Minister and Commissioner.
Well, Advocate Ndletyana yesterday labeled that statement nonsensical, especially for the reasons that you have just explained, that the warrant of arrest has not been stayed. And so it remains effective. Part of the problem where we are now is because people have decided to come up with their own rules regardless of the law. And just because they believe those rules or they say so, they therefore expect everybody to believe them. The law as it stands is that the warrant stays up until it is interdicted. And I think Minister Cele got that somewhat, because yesterday he walked back that statement to say, no, they haven't elected to make their own decision. However, they will await further instruction from the Constitutional Court. And so one is happy that he could recognize the absurdity of his own statement, that he himself is subject to the law. He can't make up his own rules.
So as it stands right now, the former president should be arrested by midnight tonight, is what you are saying?
Well, that's what the law says. It's not me. I'm simply repeating what Advocate Ndletyana was saying, and everybody who knows the law has been saying.
So it, of course, remains to be seen. The clock is ticking right now, because it seems as though everyone and everything has now been put in abeyance. We've suspended all sorts of thinking and application around this particular matter because of all the various issues being argued and being said. But do you have any sympathy for the Minister of Police, Bheki Cele, in this regard, being put in a predicament in terms of how all of this is played out? Or do you believe that he should have been a little perhaps more forthright in just carrying out his duty?
Well, I understand why he would be a little bit reluctant to act. Because as you were saying earlier, there is a high risk of bloodshed. That's why no one wants to see people being killed, especially over a stupid thing. And secondly, he is from KZN. You have an elective conference next year, and his base is KZN. So if he is to make it back into cabinet, into the ANC's NEC, it would be because of the support from KZN largely. And so he's acting with one eye ahead, looking at that elective conference. He is a politician after all. But his position, one hopes that his position makes him aware that the requirements of that position trump anything else. Because the problem here, Sakina, we are in a country where we've had a serious problem with law and order. You have people who go on strike, they break, they do all sorts of things. You have invasion of unoccupied land, and then people go on to toy on national roads because they don't have services on the land that they've illegally occupied. You have all sorts of things. There's a certain degree of impunity in this country that we need to deal with. And one way of dealing with that is to, just to implement the law. It's as simple as that. Because if you don't, you embolden others out there. You are saying it's okay to violate the law, so long as you can threaten a little bit of violence. It then means that our police should not even have those guns. What do they have those guns for? Any legitimate civilized society accepts that there would be use of violence in instances where the legitimacy of the state is threatened. In this case, the legitimacy of the state is threatened. Violence is abhorrent. No one likes violence, right? But if you have to protect the legitimacy of the state, to protect enforcement of laws so as to ensure the well-being of our collective society, you have to. You are implementing the law using violence in pursuit of the public good. So this idea that, well, there will be violence, therefore you can't act, unfortunately, it doesn't fly. It's not reality. You would expect, yes, violence is naturally not something that anyone promotes. But in defense of the law, in defense of legitimacy, you have to use it.
And then, of course, the ANC reacting to all of this, and some would argue that all of this is essentially stems from the ANC's own internal wrangling. And the Deputy Secretary General, Jessie Duarte, she said that the current situation in Nkandla has been engineered within the ranks of the ANC. The party has indicated that they will act against those who have gone against the party constitution. But let's talk about the ANC and where the party currently is. Is that centre holding at the moment?
It's attempting to. It seems to be doing that, especially in the last year or so. That statement is the most decisive the ANC has been on the Zuma matter for a while. He has always been the problem. They should have acted against him a long time ago. For instance, at some point, the Integrity Commission had asked him to step down. They got a report, the NEC, but they refused to act on that report, and Zuma simply refused to step down. And they agreed. They couldn't do anything. So they have allowed him to act in this manner, that he's above the ANC, he's above anything else. So they have emboldened him. He is exactly what the ANC has encouraged him to be. And so the chickens are coming home to roost. He is their own creation, right? And now, yes, they've acted, but forced by circumstances. Obviously, when faced with supporting the law or the militia, they choose the law. They have to choose the law because they are a governing party. They have to enforce the law. And so the statement really, even though it's okay, but it's late. It's nothing profound. It's something they have to say anyway. But where you would give them credit, I'm not quick to give them credit as of yet, but I will if they act on what they've promised in that statement. For instance, identifying people who've organized that illegal gathering in the ANC, discipline and expel them. They have made all those promises. They have disbanded the MKVA, this militia force that is led by Karl Niehaus. Are they going to discipline Karl Niehaus? They have made this statement before. And Karl Niehaus continues to make to act disorderly. They haven't done anything against him. Now you have Ace Magashule doing a similar thing, inciting ANC membership to rise up against decision of his own organization. Are they going to act? So for me, then the test of their commitment to deal with this issue decisively and to forge ahead on this path of renewal partly lies in them acting on those resolutions they've taken this last Sunday.
And just finally, Professor Ndletyana, What could the possible impact be if the former president is arrested for the ANC in particular, the ANC and its structures?
Well, it will be interesting, particularly for KZN, and I'm not worried for the rest of the country, because you've had politicization of ethnic identity. Some people in KZN support Zuma because he's Zulu speaking. So there's an ethnic identification that says, because you are Zulu speaking, therefore we'll support you regardless of whether or not you have broken the law. So they see the judiciary as this nemesis that is out to make life miserable for Jacob Zuma. They are not willing to listen to any reason, but are rallying all Zulu speaking in defense of illegality. And so I'm interested to see quite keenly how the provincial leaders are going to act. Because ultimately, for there to be law and order, they must stand up and say, we must defend the law. That Jacob Zuma has earned his sentence. He must go to prison. Are they going to be cowed away from taking that moral stance because they want political support at any cost, at the promotion of Zulu nationalism? So they must stand up to say, you cannot support Mr. Zuma purely because of him being Zulu speaking and disregard the law. So that's where we have to deal with this monstrosity of Zulu nationalism that has been there for a while, that you are making special concessions because KZN is volatile, there's this ethnic mobilization, therefore any civility and law must be suspended. So one is key to see that finally are they willing to throttle that monstrosity.
Well, very interesting. Professor Mcebisi Ndletyana, Professor of Politics at the University of Johannesburg. Thanks so much for talking to us about the political implications and developments on former President Jacob Zuma's future and, of course, implications for the African National Congress. And, issues of tribalism and how that plays out in the ANC, by no means a new subject. Also, the treatment of minorities within the party. That's a whole new topic of discussion, but we'll park this one here for now.